Attorney Latiph here in the session hall.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Your Honors.
Assalamualaikum.
Salam, Your Honors.
I am sorry that during your opening statement, you mentioned that there was still this discrimination against the Muslim population in this country, and that there seems to be an impression, according to your opening statement, that most of the terrorist acts come from Muslim Filipinos. Am I correct in hearing your opening statement?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Yes. And but then on the other hand, you are aware that there have been terrorist incidents in many places in Mindanao as well as in the environs of Metro Manila.
Yes, that is correct, Your Honor.
For example, on February 27, 2004, this was the Super Ferry incident. You remember this? Where there were 116 people that were killed due to a bomb that was hidden in a television that was loaded into Super Ferry number 14. Out of the 116 people, 6 children less than 5 years old, 9 children between 6 and 16, and 6 students sent from northern Mindanao to a journalism competition were killed. You're aware of this?
Yes, in general, Your Honor. I'm aware.
And would you recall who the perpetrators were as found by our Philippine National Police and our ISAP?
I am not aware of the...
You've heard of the Raha Sulaiman movement, correct?
Yes, I recall,
Yes,
Your Honor.
they are of a different kind of jurisprudence in Islam. I believe Salafi, jihadists. And do you know who trained them?
I do not know, Your Honor.
Abu Sayyaf and Jamaya Islamiyah.
I am not aware.
Particularly the Jamaya Islamiyah with links to Al-Qaeda in 2004.
I am not aware.
Yes. And you know where Jamaya Islamiyah comes from?
I recall, Your Honor, that they're from Indonesia, Your Honor.
Most of them are in Indonesia. And our links with the Philippines, according to intelligence reports, at least when I was working with the executive branch, and I believe that at a certain point, our national security advisor, I believe, is he here? General Esperon, is he here? Or no? But at a certain point, maybe our national security advisor or perhaps the Solicitor General can share with us that there are indeed, shall we say, transits of several high-value targets or terrorists wanted internationally through our backdoor, specifically Mindanao. You understand that?
Yes, Your Honor, I'm aware of that, Your Honor.
Yes. And 116 people means there are 116 families. 6 children less than 5 years old in 2004, 9 children between 6 and 16-year-old, 6 students from northern Mindanao for a journalism contest. You agree with me that this was a terrorist act?
Yes, I agree with you, Your Honor.
Yes, this was in 2004. I can go through the incidents in 2017. So in Basilan, kidnapping and execution July 5, Basilan, July 30, kidnapping execution, 7 Filipino loggers were beheaded in 2 separate towns in Basilan. August 5, Mindanao, 5 MILF guerrillas killed in a landmine blast while running after BIFF militants in the area. August 21, 2017, Maluso, Basilan. August 29, in Sulu, 3 people of the Muslim clan were killed in a battle with the Abu Sayyaf group. July 31, 2018, bombing in Lamitan City. August 28, in Isulan, Soc-Sargen, bombing. Also September 2. January 27, 2019, Holo, Sulu, a cathedral bombing. 20 people were killed, 82 others wounded during the mass at Holo Cathedral following 2 explosions. This was the Jama'a Ansharut Daula group. Particularly Ruli Rian Zike and Ulfa Handayani Saleh with the Abu Sayyaf Ajang faction. And then of course the latest in my record is the August 24, 20 Holo bombing, where jihadists detonated 2 bombs, killing 14 people, wounding 17 others. The first bomb was detonated while the army was carrying out COVID humanitarian efforts. And the second bomb was exploded inside the Our Lady of Mount Carmel Cathedral. You are familiar that these incidents do happen within our territory.
Yes, Your Honor, I'm aware
Yes.
of that, Your Honor.
And you are aware, therefore, that terrorism is really something which is very real, correct?
Yes, it is real, Your
Yes.
Honor.
So it is not only something that is against, let us say, the CPP, NPA, NDF, but there are a lot of other groups coming to our shores, whether alleged jihadists, because I know that in Islam, jihad can mean so many things. And there is really correct interpretation of jihad in the Quran, not what is carried by the Salafi. Am I correct?
Yes, Your Honor. Jihad, Your Honor, means, Your Honor, self-struggle, Your Honor. And it collectively, Your Honor, it is equivalent in our jurisprudence, Your Honor, is
Yes.
self-preservation, Your Honor.
And not only religious extremists that become violent and therefore do terrorist acts, but there are, let us say, rightist groups all over the world, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes.
That is
So
correct.
this concept of terrorism is very real. Is that not correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Yes. And therefore, would you agree with me that it is right for government to find a way to address terrorism?
Yes, we totally agree with the government, Your
Yes.
Honor.
And let me make an analogy. Before a car crashes, before a speeding car crashes into a wall or killing several pedestrians, there is a law which regulates speeding. Is that not correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And therefore, even before the harm is done, it is important that for certain kinds of acts, government looks at prevention or suppression of particular acts before they happen. Is that not correct?
Yes, Your Honor, that's correct.
Would you not think that terrorism is a kind of act, regardless of how it is defined now, but the general concept of terrorism, and I think you and I know, the Lamitan incident, Super Ferry incident, the Holo bombing, the Holo Cathedral bombing, these are the core concepts of terrorism. That we should not wait until it happens, that we should give our law enforcers, whether it's the PNP or the ISAP or whatever intelligence agency that we have, the tools in order to be able to detect. And more importantly, not only to detect and prosecute, but to actually disperse or disturb the actual incident. Is that not correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
And a committed terrorist, whether a rightist, a leftist, a religious extremist, or even an environmental anarchist, all of them, when they are committed, of course, while the act is doing and while they have co-conspirators, it is important that we cut the means of communication with each other so that the entire incident is disrupted. Isn't that correct?
Yes, correct, Your Honor.
So there is a criminal part of it, which is to prosecute and convict in order that it becomes a deterrent and to prevent for the future. But in terms of addressing terrorism, there is also the law enforcement part to try to suppress so that it will not happen. Is that not correct?
Yes, Your Honor, that is correct.
Yes. And as a matter of fact, under international law, there have been two basic approaches to attending to terrorist acts. The first approach is, of course, considering it as a threat to international peace. Is that not correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And as a threat to international peace, of course, it's the Security Council that is involved. And normally, therefore, it is the executive part, the commanders-in-chief of various agencies that can do preemptive acts, like the United States doing a preventive act against Al-Qaeda or the ISIS, etc., or to address it as part of armed conflict. Is that not correct?
That is correct, Your
And
Honor.
that is true for, let us say, the Abu Sayyaf, certain parts of it, and of course, what is now called as the Bangsamoro Islamic Freedom Fighters, somewhere in Maguindanao and its environs. Is that not correct?
Yes, that is correct, Your
Yes.
Honor.
But there is also the other part, which is for criminalizing these acts. And therefore, for the criminalization of these acts, the proper laws must be promulgated and the acts must be stated. Is that not correct?
Yes, that is correct.
What happens if the Philippines does not have a law that is against terrorism?
We may be sanctioned, Your Honor, by the Nations
Security Council. I'm glad you said that because I did hear one of the councils, I think it was Atty. Ging Ursua during the past, saying that there are no sanctions coming from the Security Council. But I'm glad you said that. I do not have to show to you the provisions in Chapter 7 of the UN Charter that indeed the Security Council may sanction any state party to the UN Charter if they do not follow their bidding or their requirements. Okay, so we have these types of obligations. Apart from that, apart from the sanctions, what can happen to us if we do not have and we do not participate in the international effort to prevent, suppress, and criminalize and address terrorism?
We may be isolated from the international world, Your Honor.
Not only that, do you think that we will become a safe haven?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Yes, because they will not be able to go to our neighboring countries like Malaysia, they have very strict rules, or Singapore, or even Indonesia for that matter. Then they will actually use the hinterlands or our places in Mindanao, correct?
That is correct.
Yes, and as a matter of fact, I'm not sure if you are aware that Marwan was located in Mindanao, correct?
Yes, that is correct, Your
Yes,
Honor.
he was the object of the Mama Sapano incident, correct?
Yes, that is
And
correct.
you are also aware that many of the international high-value targets will go to Mindanao, marry a Filipina, usually from one of the communities, to get protection with them. Is that not correct?
Yes, that is the
Yes.
case of Marwan.
So
Your
the
Honor.
concept of us becoming a safe haven might be actually happening even as we speak. Is that not correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Yes. If therefore we do not comply with international law or what is called by the Security Council in terms of preventing, suppressing, and attending to terrorism, that we will become the pariah because we will be training the bombers that will go to Malaysia, to Indonesia, to Hong Kong, to the United States of America, as probably we had some connection with the 9/11 incident. Is that not correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Yes. So therefore, it is important that our laws are not only backward, not only rudimentary, but they must be state-of-the-art in order to equip our law enforcers with respect to attending to terrorism. Is that not correct?
Yes, Your Honor. I agree.
And would you say that this court, in assessing the constitutionality of the provisions, must also take that into consideration, not only our domestic parochial concerns, but also the reality that terrorism is an international phenomenon. As a matter of fact, social media can create epistemic bubbles. Is that not correct?
That is correct, Your
Yes,
Honor.
and that is the way that many of our disenchanted youth may be radicalized using that particular medium. Is that not correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
And would you agree with me that, as a matter of fact, there have been reports by our intelligence agencies, and perhaps again the Solicitor General can present the reports at some point, that in Syria, in Afghanistan, there were Filipino militants who made their way to those places as part of Mujahideen during the time that they were trying to repel the Russian forces, and then as a follow-on, going to Syria and going to places where ISIS was present. Is that not correct?
Based on my reading on the newspaper, Your Honor.
It's possible, correct? Yes, and the truth is, of course, even the Marawi incident has international connections. Isn't that correct?
I am not aware, Your Honor.
Yes. So would you agree with me that when this court assesses what the Congress did, we have to take into consideration the kind of standard required under the UN Security Council resolutions, as well as the ability of our country's law enforcers and intelligence agencies to be able to cooperate with other intelligence agencies, because terrorism knows no borders. Is that not correct?
Compliance with international body like the United Nations Security Council, Your Honor, it must comply with our Constitution,
Yes.
Your Honor.
And we have to do this not because we want to discriminate against the Moro or the Muslim. Okay, and Moro and Muslim are two different things. You agree with me, Attorney Latiph?
Yes, I agree with you, Your
Yes.
Honor.
Moro has something to do with ethnicity to a particular locality. Bangsamoro, for instance, in Mindanao, Muslim is a adherence to a religion, and one of us can be Muslim here, although not Moro. Is that not correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Yes, and therefore, the reason that we also do this is not merely to discriminate against the Moro or the Muslim, but to protect. Because most of the bombs that I have surveyed from 2004 to 2020 have happened in Mindanao, although there were, of course, other incidents of my personal knowledge, having dealt with the security cluster in an administration past, where there were actually successful interventions done by law enforcers to prevent actual terrorist acts. Would you agree with me?
I cannot agree with Your Honor because in
Because
terms
you
of
have no
law
knowledge.
enforcement, Your Honor.
Yes. And would
Uh,
you agree with me that in certain instances where they were able to interdict at that time, they told me, intelligence agencies told me, that they did whatever they needed to do, despite the fact that the law was not yet the kind of law that we had, in order to be able to prevent a bombing, let us say, in a fiesta in Laguna and Quezon, or the Quiapo, what do you call this? Translation. You do not know, of course.
yeah,
Yes.
I'm aware
But
of that.
the truth is that, would you agree with me that we cannot stereotype all our intelligence agencies and all our intelligence personnel as people who want to violate human rights? But would you agree with me that there are people within that organization, the Army, the ISAP, the NICA, the NSA, that really fervently want to try to stop this kind of incidents from happening ever again? Is that not correct?
That is correct, Your Honor. But
Yes,
it
and
is-
you know, of course, that they are on a 24/7 watch basis. That they do not know which civilian, from where, etc., that this next attack will be coming from.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. So, in other words, that a terrorism law is essential, correct?
In the case of Marawi, Your Honor, it is not essential because they were those.
No, in general, a terrorism law is essential.
Yes, Your Honor.
An
it is essential.
anti-terrorism law is essential.
Yes, Your Honor. that
Yes,
is
and we must take care that when we rule upon the provisions of this law or this act, that the law enforcers are not left with nothing in terms of being able to address this horror of modern society. Is that not correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, let's just go to a definition of terms only for purposes of this interpellation. Extremism is different from terrorism. Would you agree with me?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, extremism is a belief. Terrorism is the method. Would you agree with me?
The method, Your Honor, is violence.
Yes,
based on my reading.
terrorism,
Yes, Your
which
Honor.
is a form of violence,
Yes, Your Honor.
writ large, in
Yes.
order to sow fear and compulsion and intimidation
That is
in
correct,
Section
Your
4, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
So extremism can mean, for example, that I'm a Marxist. It means that the normative, being liberalism, maybe among the 15 justices here, maybe liberal, left of center, right of center, whatever. But when I am a Marxist, within the normative framework, I am an extremist. Is that not correct?
It can be, Your Honor.
If I am a Marxist, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And even if I'm a Marxist, there are many shades of Marxism. Would you agree with me?
Yes, Your Honor.
There is Marxist-Leninist, correct?
Yes, and
There's-
Maoist, Your Honor.
Yes, Marxist-Leninist, Maoist, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Can you point to a Marxist-Leninist, Maoist in the session hall? No, I'm just kidding.
No, I cannot do that. Your Honor.
But those are belief systems, correct?
Yes, it is confined with the realm
Yes.
of thought, Your Honor.
Yes, and there are Marxists which are later-day Marxists. There's the young Marx, there's the mature Marx. And there are Marxists from the critical school in Frankfurt, Marcuse, Althusser, Adorno, etc. These are also Marxists, correct?
I'm not aware of
Yes,
that.
and there are also feminist Marxists, correct? Angela Davis, etc. Right?
Yes,
Okay.
Your Honor.
So therefore, a belief in this system is not terrorism, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
We
that is
have
the
to be
method.
clear about that,
Yes,
right?
Your Honor.
There is even a brand of Islam that hews closely to Marxism. Is that not true? The same way that in Islam, there are various schools of thought. You agree with me?
Yes, that is correct.
Yes, and there is the Sunni Shiite, there
Shiite.
is the Maliki, there is the etc. Many schools, correct?
That is correct, Your
Yes, there's even the romantic Sufism,
Honor.
correct?
Yes, Sufism,
And
Your Honor.
are you a Sufist?
No, Your Honor.
No, but like Rumi etc. The beautiful poems of Rumi, going to tantric methods, etc. But the point there is there are various shades of various beliefs, correct? So extremism is different from terrorism. Is that not correct?
Yes, the one
As a matter of fact, part of the reason why the UN General Assembly hesitated to come out with a resolution prior to 49/60 in 1994 was because certain third world countries said that the freedom fighter is not a terrorist. You agree with me?
Yes, Your Honor.
But in that resolution in 1994, they separated. Whatever terrorist act you do, you cannot justify. You can never justify by means of an ideology or a philosophy. Is that not correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
So we punish the method, but not the ideology, correct?
Yes.
So let me be very clear with you. You agree with me that this court should say that extremism should never be punished. Is that not correct?
Yes, Your Honor, because that is within the realm of thought. Then it is
Whether you're
announced.
rightist, you're the most rightist person in the world, you believe in fascism and totalitarianism, rightist method, or the most leftist, but you believe also in leftist totalitarianism, the vanguard party, the proletariat as the vanguard party, the dictatorship of the proletariat. Whatever your belief is, that should not be punished. Is that not correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
It's even covered in an international convention, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
It's Article 19 of the International Convention on Civil and Political Rights, paragraph A. Is that not correct?
Yes, freedom of thought, Your Honor.
And freedom of opinion and embedded in this country. So when General Parlades says his point that he is offended by the statements made by the communists, that speech is also protected, correct?
It is protected, Your Honor, but he is accountable because he's an official of the military, Your Honor.
Yes. Will you prosecute that kind of speech?
Yes, Your Honor.
You will prosecute that kind of speech, but you will not prosecute the kind of speech saying that we should destabilize government in order to be able to rebuild. As Vladimir Ilyich Lenin said, a new society can only be had under the womb of an old one, correct?
That is correct.
By the
Your
way,
Honor.
did I commit a terrorist act by stating the statement or paraphrasing Vladimir Ilyich Lenin, who, by the way, is not my relative? Correct? But I did not, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
I only made a statement of belief or faith or even a philosophy or a political point of view, correct?
That is
That
correct,
should
Your
not be punished. So we should make that distinction, correct?
That is
So
correct,
let me
Your Honor.
summarize. You agree with me that this court should take care that there is an anti-terrorism law that stands because it is part of our international obligation. That as a matter of fact, we should balance the way we read the Constitution in such a way that we comply also with our international commitments without, of course, undermining the basic values and principles contained in the Constitution. Is that not correct?
We already complied with, Your Honor, with the human security enactment of the human security law, Your Honor.
Your opinion. But
Yes,
again,
Your Honor.
as I was saying, this court must take that as a principle in terms of interpreting this new law, correct?
Yes, as long as it will not infringe the
Because,
Constitution.
of course, you agree with me, we cannot tell Congress and the Senate, you made a mistake. You should have just stuck with the old law, correct? That's a
Yes.
matter of policy, correct?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Our
Yes, Your
only
Honor.
justification for saying you should go back to the old law is when we find that the repealing clause is also null and void, and that we find a reason under the Constitution. Is that not correct?
That is correct.
We
Your
cannot
Honor.
substitute our judgment, right?
That is correct.
Yes.
Your
By the way, do you know any of us as having been able to implement or interdict a terrorist?
I have no knowledge of
We
that,
are,
Your Honor.
none of us are law enforcers, except I think our newest justice was a prosecutor, but that's not law enforcement. Is that not correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
I think also Justice Salameda was a prosecutor, one of the best prosecutors this country has produced. Justice Jolo,
Lopez.
Justice Rodil Salameda. Oh, and of course, if I'm not mistaken, the Chief Justice, whose judge was the strictest also in this world, Justice Romy Calleja, who is now our JIB. But none of us have ever been law enforcers. Is that not correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
And we have no basis to say that the old law was less effective or more effective to interdict terrorists than the present law. Is that not correct?
That is your job, Your Honor, as the magistrate to interpret the law.
Yes, but we cannot say which one is the more effective to the intelligence component. The Army, the police, the Navy has their own intelligence component, etc., because none of us have ever been there. Is that not correct?
Yes, Your Honor, because
We have to rely on manifestations and evidence that is presented, correct?
that is correct, Your
So
Honor.
when one of you tells us that there was already enough law, enough mechanism prior to this law in order to interdict the Lamitan bombing, etc., we will have to take that with a grain of salt, correct? Because has any of the petitioners' counsels been in the position of a law enforcer, specifically those that go after terrorists? That was a question. Have any of the petitioners' counsels, the ones here now, in your knowledge, been in the position to enforce the anti-terror law and to go after a terrorist?
I have no knowledge, and perhaps, Your Honor, none.
I know Attorney Evelyn Orsua, no. I know Professor Molo, no. I know Attorney Jokno, no. I know Attorney Cadiz, no. I know, of course, Congressman Lagman is the wise man of the House of Representatives, but I do not know whether he has implemented or gone after a terrorist. Am I correct?
Yes, Your Honor,
Yes,
but
so-
we did not raise it in our petition, Your Honor.
So we cannot give a lot of weight to a statement that the old law was more effective than the new one, correct? Now, to your knowledge, how many have been convicted under the old law?
Under the old law, to my recollection, if I may correct, Your Honor, there was only one as accessory. This is a case in Regional Trial Court of Midsayap, and it was by virtue of a plea bargaining agreement, Your Honor.
So
And in fact, Your Honor,
many incidents, yet only one prosecution.
Yes, including, Your Honor, the Marawi Siege, Your Honor. They were not charged with the under Human Security Act. They were charged with rebellion, Your Honor.
Yes. So isn't that precisely the point?
There is a law on terrorism, Your Honor, and it is not applied
Yes.
to them. So
And
I do
would-
not know why we
Yes,
need
and
another law
probably
like this, Your
the
Honor.
Solgen during his turn will explain to us why the agencies under his representation felt that there needed to be a new law. Is that not correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. But the other takeaway is extremism is different from terrorism, correct?
That is correct, Your
Yes.
Honor.
And extremism should be allowed because
It is within the realm of law. There's no overt act,
freedom of
Your Honor.
expression. But freedom of expression by itself does not have value unless there is a philosophical idea behind it, correct?
That is correct, Your
Yes,
Honor.
and John Stuart Mill said, even the false idea is important. Even a false opinion is important because it enables those that in the majority and in the status quo to reveal how they will refute that false idea. And therefore, again, to reiterate the values of the government in terms of that particular false idea. And therefore, the best test of truth is that it is tested in the market. Is that not correct?
Yes, that is the meaning of
Yes.
democracy, Your Honor.
Democracy, therefore, means that every person can be able to speak their mind, correct?
That is correct,
Okay.
Your Honor.
Freedom of expression is protected, but not conduct. Is that not correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, and conduct can become expressive, like burning a flag, for example, right? So that can be part of freedom of expression, correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
But certainly violence is not part of protected speech, even though it is expressive, correct?
Yes, Your Honor. That is
If I am
correct.
so angry with a certain person, I cannot do violence against that person, even if I say that's part of my expression. That's not allowed, correct?
That is not allowed, Your Honor.
Because you curtail the ability of that person to respond to you without coercion in the open. And therefore, you undermine the value of freedom of expression. Is that not correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
So we punish violence, and therefore, it is legitimate that violence is criminalized, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, and that violence can be, or the act to commit a violent act. The intention to commit a violent act, you can punish it, as according to you a while ago, you can punish it even if it is at that stage of overt acts towards that conclusion. Is that not correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And that's section 4, A, B, C, D, E.
With respect, Your Honor, to the proviso, Your Honor, in Section 4, I think
No, not the proviso. A, B, C, D, E.
in Section A, B, and C, Your Honor.
Engages in acts, overt
is-
act, intended, and the cause is serious harm, correct?
That is correct, Your
So
Honor.
there is an overt act. Look, engage in acts, letter A. Letter B, engage in acts. C, engage in acts. D, develops, manufactures, etc. E, releases. Overt acts, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, and as you said, before the accident actually happens, you can prevent it from happening, right?
That is correct, Your
That's
Honor.
why there is no attempt, frustrated stages. Because that is the idea in the concept of addressing, preventing terrorism. Is that not correct?
There must be an act committed first, Your Honor.
Yes. An act which may not have caused the bodily injury yet, but it is in the process of committing. That's where the intent becomes the connection, correct?
There may be act, Your Honor, which is constitutionally protected, Your Honor, which may have an intended effect, Your Honor, that may
Yes, but
cause
I
this.
will leave it at that, because I am sure that my colleagues who are more experts in criminal law than myself will interrogate you on, or some of your counsels on that particular incident, because I heard one of you say that the law punishes intent, not act.
This issue, Your Honor, is being discussed by one of my colleagues, Your Honor.
Yes,
I
I
think they're
understand.
proper to answer that.
Yes, that's why I will call him later. And thank you very much, Attorney Latiph, for that very enlightening discussion. Can I now ask
You're welcome, Your Honor.
Attorney Neri Colmenares? What is that section regarding? You discussed the section regarding. I think you have
Bill of
overstepped.
Attainders, Your Honor.
You have overstepped your boundary. That is for the Solgen.
Oh,
Yes.
sorry.
That's usurpation. Baka ka makuwaran to. Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes. Okay. Now, what is that section regarding arbitrary detention in the Anti-Terror Act?
Yes, that was actually assigned to Congressman Lagman, but Section 29 is on arrest and prolonged detention, Your Honor.
Okay. I'm sure you're familiar with that, and I just want to ask you about that. What does that section actually do?
Well, upon the
It
authorization.
suspends Article 125, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Not suspend, but it redefines arbitrary detention for purposes of terrorism, correct?
Correct, Your
Or
Honor.
acts considered as terrorism. Is that not correct?
Correct. And not only that, we argue also that the Constitution is also transgressed.
Okay, what part of the Constitution?
Well, in our opinion, Your Honor, the Constitution limits the days of detention for a prisoner, Your Honor, and that is our contention. And that particular provision we would like to forward
So this is
was actually
Article
written-
7,
Yes,
Section
18, Your Honor.
18. What
So-
what again is Article 17, Section 18?
Well, it says, Your Honor, that
It's called the Commander-in-Chief provision,
yes,
correct?
Your Honor.
Okay,
In cases of
a while ago, we clarified that there were two approaches to attending to terrorism. The first approach is the executive approach, which is to treat it as a threat against international peace, a threat against national security, and therefore, like in Section 2, there is a cut-out there. And the cut-out is about executive actions to address terrorism. Like, for
Yes, Your Honor.
example, what happened in Marawi. Is that not correct?
yes, Your Honor.
Yes. So it is calling out the armed forces to address an invasion or rebellion, or simply the calling out power of the president to call out the armed forces to suppress lawless violence. That's all, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And I recall that there was somebody among us who dissented and said that's not rebellion, that is terrorism. Is that not right?
I'm not familiar, Your Honor.
You're not familiar.
Yes.
You're talking to him, right?
Oh, yes, Your
okay.
Honor.
But in any case, so what we are saying is, yes, so that is one provision. Article 8, Section 18 is the Commander-in-Chief provision, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
It prohibits and suspends the writ of habeas. It allows the president to suspend the writ of habeas corpus. Is that not correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And to suspend the writ of habeas corpus, during its suspension, a person may not be detained for more than 3 days, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
So the link there is the 3 days is connected to habeas corpus, correct?
Well, in my opinion, Your Honor, it is actually connected
Read the provision.
to all, Your Honor, because if it is an extreme situation where the writ of habeas corpus has been imposed and it limits only to 3 days, the more reason, Your Honor, we argue,
Okay.
of course, that it will also apply
If a person is
in normal
detained
times, Your Honor.
because of the provision now in the Anti-Terror Act, is habeas corpus still applicable to them?
Well, they can resort to that.
Because all it
Your
does,
Honor.
it says that the rule on arbitrary detention will not apply because the days now will be different, correct?
Your Honor, if the
And
habeas-
therefore, is habeas corpus still viable when somebody is detained under the Anti-Terror Act?
I think it can be argued by the accused,
Yes.
Your Honor, in this case that since Section 29, the title itself says detention without judicial warrant and the authorization of the ATC was empowered by the law. Therefore, the detention
So when
of
the
that person
ATC
is valid because of the law,
uses
Your
a
Honor.
justification which is not allowed by the law and uses, for example, no designation yet, arrests an individual and keeps that individual for more than 10 days for that matter, habeas corpus is no longer available?
They can, of course,
is there
accused,
anything-
Your Honor, can file a habeas corpus petition,
Yes. Is
but
there
because
anything
the
in
law
the law-
allows the ATC to
Yes.
do that, Your Honor, then the habeas corpus could be dismissed immediately
Yes,
by the
you
judge.
know, Attorney Neri, you are convincing me, correct?
Thank
And if you do not
I
listen
hope so,
to my,
Your Honor.
you're not listening to my questions, I will not be able to understand from my perspective.
But Your Honor, I was answering your previous question.
I got your answer in the
Yes,
first
yes.
words that you said, and that's
Yes,
my
Your Honor.
preference, correct?
Submit, Your Honor.
Now, so you are saying that habeas corpus is not available if a person is already detained under this law. Is that your contention?
The person can still file a habeas corpus petition,
Okay.
but
So
it cannot be
that
even
right
a...
is not removed, correct?
Pardon, Your Honor?
That right is not removed.
Well, the filing itself, Your Honor, but the effectiveness of the remedy is already removed because the
I'm
Terror
sorry.
Council...
When you file a petition for habeas corpus, you file it before a court of law, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And the court of law can be the Supreme Court, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And you are telling us that when they file a petition for habeas corpus here, we will certainly dismiss it.
Well, Your Honor,
You know
because-
better than Manila Times the result of the action of the court? You know better than us?
Your Honor, please.
Yes.
The,
So we can
the
clarify
title
even-
of the law, Your Honor, is detention without judicial warrant. So the court will say, well, that was valid under the law.
Yes,
That
but
you can be detained
again, as
for
I said,
24 days without judicial warrant.
that is
So
your,
what's
that's your
question?
interpretation, and you do not sit in the bench, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, and part of the way that we can clarify is it's possible to file a petition for habeas
Yes, Your
corpus.
Honor. Yes.
And when a petition is filed, it is up to the court to attend at that moment to see whether the 3 days or the 14 days will apply, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, and proceeding from a theme that I had last time, we wait for that incident, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Have you been detained already by this law?
Not yet, Your
Not
Honor.
yet. Have any of your clients been detained under this law?
Many, Your Honor, have
Your
been
petition.
in my petition, Your
Yes.
Honor. Not that I know of as
Okay.
of now, but Your Honor,
Thank you
please,
for the clarification.
Your Honor, please, if I may, the law includes the exercise of civil and political rights within the ambit of terrorism, Your Honor.
Wait, that's not my
And-
question. I will ask that from Attorney Chell. So
Okay.
let me just go to the question.
Thank you, Your
Just
Honor.
for brevity and for orderly procedure, so that the
Thank
rest
you,
of my
Your Honor.
colleagues can ask the question now, and we might be able to finish today.
Thank you.
And then maybe tonight we will hear the Solgen, and I think we will have another session for that. Okay, but that nonetheless. Okay, now you spoke about surveillance, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. Okay. There is Section 2 and there is Section 3 of Article 3 of the Constitution. Is that not correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. What is the difference between Section 2 and Section 3 in terms of its application of the Constitution?
Well, Section 2, Your Honor, is about the right of the people to be secure in their
The right of the
persons.
people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures
Yes. And
shall be inviolable. And you look at the end phrase, describing the place to be searched and the
Correct.
persons or things to be seized, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
So the person or thing already exists to be seized.
Yes, Your Honor.
And the person or thing to be seized, person or thing, and thing can be fungible or non-fungible, correct? Tangible or intangible. They already exist, correct?
Yes, Your
In
Honor.
other words, Section 2 might apply, just reading that, might apply when the crime has already been committed, right?
Or about to be committed, Your Honor.
No, it says persons or things to be seized. Therefore,
Your
it
Honor.
is already there, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. Now look at Section 3. Section 3 actually says, the privacy of communication and correspondence shall be inviolable, except upon lawful order of the court or when public safety or order requires otherwise, as prescribed by law. Now, the difference might be, and this is covered in a separate opinion in the case of Subido versus AMLA, the law firm of, I think then, Vice President Binay versus AMLA. The ponente there was Pepe Perez, Justice Pepe Perez, and there was a separate opinion which clarified that Article 3, Section 3 applies to conversations and communication. And the intervention there happens before you speak, and therefore the thing does not yet exist, correct?
Well, Your Honor, under the
Surveillance.
ATA law, surveillance,
Yes.
Your Honor,
No, we're just
it
going to Section 3.
empowers-
Section 3. I'm not yet in AMLA.
Okay.
Section 3 says, privacy of communication and correspondence shall not be violated. Can we go back to Section 3?
Yes, Your
Except upon lawful order of the court, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
It means, therefore, that there is a law which allows that the communication can be intercepted, privacy of communication except upon lawful order of the
Yes.
court, right? In order to be able to get conversation which has not yet happened. For example, Attorney Neri, you are in my contact list and you are being surveilled.
Yes.
We haven't spoken yet, but when I call you and ask you, magkano ba ang Kalinga Kape coffee mo? That will be what will be intercepted, but the authority of the court comes before the thing exists, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. And look at the test in Section 3. Does it say probable cause?
No, Your Honor.
It says lawful order of the court.
Yes,
When
Your Honor.
public safety or order requires otherwise, public safety or order requires otherwise as prescribed by law.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes.
That's the provision, Your
So
Honor.
this is not Section 2, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
So surveillance can be allowed so long as there is a law and the law is based upon public safety or order, correct?
But we contend, Your Honor, that surveillance is search, Your Honor, under the Constitution too.
No, again, look at Section 3.
Yes, Your Honor.
And you said the difference is in searches, the thing already exists. The conversation is already there. That may be applicable for text messages already exchanged. But for surveillance, papanoorin nila kung saan ka pupunta. Susundan ka nila. Hindi mo pa nagagawa. And the lawful order there comes out before you actually do it, before the thing will exist. And all it says is lawful order of the court,
Yes,
number
Your Honor.
1. Public safety or order requires, and this is in the law, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
So this is met
The-
by
the
the
problem,
Anti-Terror Act.
Your Honor, in this case is that we contest the intrinsic validity of the Section 4, Your Honor, because it is vague, it is overbroad, and therefore any resulting lawful order from the court has violated the fundamental rights of the suspect,
I
Your
cannot
Honor.
get the idea that it is vague because lawful order, so the Court of Appeals will issue the order. The law already states that they can issue the order, and therefore the surveillance constitutionally under Section 3, Paragraph 1 is valid, correct?
Yes, Your Honor. I'm referring to the definition of terrorism under Section 4. And second to that, Your Honor, the surveillance section under Section
Yes.
16 does not only give...
In other words, Attorney Neri, I would like you to cover this distinction. That there are searches that are for purposes of getting the fruit of the crime.
Yes, Your Honor.
And this is already not investigation for purposes of defining whether a person has committed the offense. This is already to gather the evidence for prosecution, period.
Yes, Your Honor.
There is investigation that is criminal in nature, where you are trying to determine whether this person is actually a criminal. That's where surveillance can come in, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, and there is this situation for terrorism, when apart from the fact that you want to put it within the rubric of prosecution of crimes, criminal investigation, preliminary investigation, conviction, you also want to stop it. And therefore, you want law enforcers to be able to look at a suspect and be able to find out whether they are in fact planning to put a bomb inside the television, put it in a super ferry, in order that it will kill 116 individuals. Is that not correct?
Yes.
So,
but Your Honor,
You have to, maybe in your memorandum, make this distinction, and I hope the Solgen also can address this, that there are certain instances where the intrusion is not to get the fruit of the evidence, but the intrusion is to prevent terrorism as a unique crime of the 21st century.
As
Correct?
long as it's not tantamount to fishing expeditions, Your Honor, and recognize the right to privacy we contend, then that may be allowed, Your Honor.
But there is
in
a
the
certain
case,
degree of, shall we say, there's a certain degree of risk always when you are trying to find out whether an individual, based upon your knowledge, might be a terrorist, correct?
but no unbridled discretion on the part of the
Of course.
enforcement can be
Of
given
course.
by the court.
That
And in
is the
this
basic
case,
framework of our Constitution. There can be no unbridled license. But
Yes.
would it be enough in order to stop somebody from even planting a bomb inside the television and putting it in a super ferry so that it kills 116 individuals? You agree with me
I'm sure current
that
law,
it
Your
is
Honor, will
legitimate,
address that,
that
Your
it's
Honor.
a legitimate public function? Don't debate with me, counsel. Answer my questions.
Sorry.
Let me finish my questions.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. So, in other words, it is legitimate for the public, for a public agency to be able to prevent even the putting of a bomb inside the television at that early stage in
Yes,
order
Your
that
Honor.
there is no danger to anyone. Correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Again, please cover that in your
Thank you.
memorandum. It was you that said last meeting that the old law was already had all the tools
Yes,
in
Your Honor.
order to interdict terrorism.
Yes, Your Honor.
And what's your study?
Well, our contention, Your Honor, there are current laws. The revised penal code penalizes
No, I
arson.
mean,
Acts
how do
of-
you know that the laws already contained all the tools in order for a law enforcer to interdict terrorism? Have you done that?
Your Honor, I don't have to experience, or none of us have to experience
No
being law
experience.
enforcers.
So
Your Honor,
therefore,
please,
it is only
if I may
based on your
finish,
belief.
Your Honor.
You said no experience.
No.
So therefore, it is only based on your belief, correct?
Your Honors, in the same way that
It
this
is
court
based
will
upon
decide.
your opinion.
No, Your Honors, please, if I may finish.
Yes.
In the same way that this court may not be priests or pastors, but they can decide on whether the practice of religious profession is transgressed, Your Honor.
That's why
You
we
don't
have-
have to be a part of the media to rule on free press. So I find it, Your Honor, I don't think it's
In other words, you have
necessary
never
for me
been.
to be a law enforcer. To
You have
know.
never been a law enforcer.
No, Your
correct?
Honor.
You have never gone after a terrorist. Is that not correct?
No, Your
You
Honor.
cannot even enumerate to me the high-value targets now under the National Security Agency.
No, Your Honor.
You cannot enumerate to me. You cannot know what happened in all of these incidents, why intelligence failed or law enforcers failed.
No, Your Honor.
Yes.
But we always...
Yet you say that they already had all the tools, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
So you want us to go beyond the wisdom of those that proposed the law, the wisdom of the House, all 300 of them, the wisdom of the 24 senators with some dissents, in order to be able to say, hey, we already know that the old law was better, correct?
It is possible, Your Honor, that they will have or do not have the tools. But the issue in this court is not whether they have or do not have the tools. Because even if they do not have the tools, the court cannot allow a law
That
that will
they
give
have-
them tools and violate constitutional
That
rights,
they had
Your
the
Honor.
tools or did not have the tools is your opinion, correct?
It's my opinion, Your
Yes.
Honor.
And your opinion is just an opinion.
Yes, but that's not
So
the issue
in
in this case, Your
epistemology,
Honor.
it is a belief. It
Yes,
may
Your
not be
Honor.
a true belief. It may not be a justified true belief, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
So you are just alleging, right?
Yes, but they also contend, Your Honor, that they don't have the tools. So we're on the same
Well, I'm
footing.
sorry, Attorney Neri.
Yes, Your
We
Honor.
have to give them their opportunity to be heard.
Okay, thank
And
you,
we
Your
will
Honor.
want to hear from them also. So you cannot pass on your answers to me by
Yes,
pointing
Your
to a
Honor.
straw person,
I'm
correct?
just saying that we
That's a
contend.
logical fallacy, right?
Well, we
Yes.
contend, Your Honor.
Thank
in
you,
our
Attorney
opinion.
Neri.